Hi boys and girls, this is Mrs. Hogan. This is a tool that we will use throughout the school year. It's called CaptureCast, and I know that there are other tools out there, but this is the one that I am comfortable using. I make some slideshows in Google Docs, and then I talk over them. The main way we'll use this is with our math homework. I have made a video for every single math homework. I've scanned in the homework, and I've done the problems out, and then I talk over them and explain them to you. So every night when you do math homework, you can watch the video. Either watch the video first and then do your homework. You can watch the video and pause it while you do one of the problems. You can do your homework and then watch the video to double check your homework. So whatever strategy works for you, we will have these YouTube videos for all the homeworks. If your parents allow you, or if your parents themselves go on my YouTube channel themselves, they will see all the math videos. Please don't go ahead because it just doesn't make sense. But I also have these YouTube videos for to study guides for the science tests and social studies tests, and other videos for other purposes. So throughout the year, I'll be emailing the links for these YouTube videos, as well as if you just go to my YouTube channel, you'll see all of them there. Okay, so let's get started. In your Move On Day packet, you got a list of the Massachusetts Children's Book Awards for 2018, and grades 4 and 5 are asked to read at least 3 books. Mrs. Craig does have them in the school library, but I also will have them in our classroom library, and I will have them on my iPad for people to read, and I'll have them in audible.com for people to listen to. If you have that app or would like to get that app to listen to these books be read to you, audible.com is a great app, and you can get the books that way. So let's get started. The list, the main list is alphabetical, but the way that I'm going to be going through the books, I went through grade level. So the first 5 books are labeled early grade 4. So these should be accessible. Of course, anyone can read them to you as well, because that's always fun, or you can take turns reading. Okay, so let's get started. So the first book that I read was Another Day as Emily. And there's a little summary here, and it says, Susie is jealous when her brother is deemed a town hero, so she finds solace in the poetry and reclusive lifestyle of Emily Dickinson. So Susie has a wonderful life, and she's very, very happy. And then her brother, her little brother, as you can see right here, he's much smaller, does something heroic and ends up in the newspaper, and he's interviewed, and everyone knows him because it's a small town, and he wears his cape because he's a hero. And Susie becomes a little jealous because she's the older sister, and so she's a little irritated that her little brother gets more notice than she does. And in school, they are studying poetry, and Emily Dickinson is a famous poet, and she researches Emily and decides that she's going to be Emily, because Emily Dickinson decided that she was just going to stay in her house, not see anybody, and just wear certain clothes and just cut herself off from the world. But Emily Dickinson lived in a different time. So obviously, Susie learns a very important lesson, that it's not a good idea to shut yourself off from people. But it's a cute story because her brother, it kind of reminded me of Fudge. And if you've ever read Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing, you know about Fudge, the little brother who causes a lot of trouble, but everyone thinks is adorable. And you may have a brother or sister that is that, or you may be that brother or sister. So it's a fun book. It's a short read, and I really enjoyed it. The Truth of Me, and it's a longer title than that. It's The Truth of Me, about a boy, his grandmother, and a very good dog. Robbie and his dog Ellie spend the summer at his grandmother Maddie's house, where Robbie learns many things about his emotionally distant parents and himself. Well, that sounds fancy, but his mom and dad are in a string quartet. His mother plays the violin, his father plays the cello, and they spend 2 months traveling in the summer performing in concerts. So he goes to his grandmother Maddie's house in the woods and with his dog, and he's not really sure who he is and what his life is about. I mean, he's young to even know that, but he kind of gets that his parents are just dropping him there, and he loves his grandmother, but she teaches him about himself, and her friend also teaches Robbie some good lessons about life and being a good person and knowing that you decide who you are. So he and his dog have some adventures in the woods. And Patricia McLaughlin is an excellent author, so I would recommend any books by Patricia. I don't want to give away too much about these books, but I highly recommend this. Okay, the next one is Inspector Flytrap. This is actually a series, and I got 3 of the books, but I couldn't bear to read another one. I highlighted as I was reading the books, and Another Day's Emily, I did green because I really loved it. The Truth of Me about a boy and his dog, I did yellow because I was like, it's okay. Inspector Flytrap, I did red. I'm not a fan. It's cute. You may love it. It's a very quick read, but it was just a little too much. It's a Venus Flytrap detective. He rides, obviously he can't walk, so he rides on a skateboard that his goat, who is his secretary, pushes him on. The first book is about the Da Vinci Code, supposedly, but it really doesn't tell you a lot of good information. I thought maybe it would tell a little bit more about Leonardo da Vinci, the artist, and it really didn't. It was very, very light and a very quick read. It's very short. So in each of the stories, Inspector Flytrap, who is wheeled around everywhere with his goat sidekick, and they solve mysteries. So it's cute. They're cute drawings. I wasn't a fan, but you might find it funny. Nuts to You. Well, this I did green. I loved this. Jed, Titi, and Chai are good friends, and they're squirrels. Jed is snatched up by a hawk and carried away to another realm, meaning another squirrel village. But they see him get dropped. He gets the hawk to drop him, so the hawk doesn't eat him. So his friends, Cece and Chai, go after him. There are a lot of adventures, and it is actually, I couldn't put it down. It was really, really good. There's a lot of danger. And they run into other, foxes and bobcats and other things. But then the 3 squirrel communities come together to solve a problem. So I don't want to tell you too much, but I loved it. Okay. This is the last early 4th grade book, and it's called Jack, the True Story of Jack and the Beanstalk. And it's not the Jack and the Beanstalk that you heard as a child, even though you are children. I loved this. So one of the reasons I was really looking forward to this is that I had read last year Rump, the True Story of Rumpelstiltskin, and it was awesome. And I really recommended it to everybody in my class last year, and almost every single kid read it. They loved it. So here is Jack, and Jack has always been told the story of his great-great-grandfather, the original Jack and the Beanstalk. And he wants to have his own adventure. He's like, why? I should be doing more. I should be having more adventures like my great-grandfather. And I'm just this boring kid who works in a field. And then one night there's a huge, it sounds like a thunderstorm, but he sees the giants and they take away a lot of things, including his father. So he trades the cow for the beans, just like in the original Jack. And his mother is furious. But he starts to go up the beanstalk, and then his sister comes, and he's like, no, this is my adventure. I'm going to save Dad. But his sister comes, and they're on a mission, and it's not what you expect. So I don't want to give it away, but it was awesome, and I loved it. And I also purchased Red, the true story of Red Riding Hood. I haven't read that yet, but I can't wait. So I also have that for our classroom library. Fish in a Tree. Well, that sounds different, doesn't it? This is actually grade 4. And this was green for me. And this is an interesting, I said, this is impossible to possible, be someone's hero, find your grit. That's a big thing that we'll talk about this year, having grit and perseverance. We know that perseverance is Mr. McKay's favorite word, but grit also means understanding that we all have these speed bumps. There are certain things that are difficult for some of us. Even this, I'm doing this capture cast. I've started it 3 times because I get started talking and then there might be a noise in the house, or I may stumble over some words and I want it to be a little more flowy. Or even, riding a bike or doing math or writing a story. We all have speed bumps, or even in gym. Some kids have difficulty in gym and they get very frustrated. And grit is getting over that speed bump, even if you can see another one coming. But understanding that getting over that speed bump, you feel so good after. And you can't really go around a speed bump. You're just going sideways. So I like this first line. It says, everybody is smart in different ways, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its life believing it's stupid, because can a fish climb a tree? No. So Allie has been smart enough to fool a lot of smart people. Every time she lands in a new school, she hides the fact that she can't read. Well, this reminds me of Patricia Polacco's book, Thank You, Mr. Falker, how Patricia Polacco had dyslexia, and she didn't know it, and she thought she was dumb, and she would never learn to read. And then Mr. Falker teaches her, and then all of a sudden the world opens up to her. So Allie is afraid to ask for help. And then Mr. Daniels helps her. And then she's free to be herself. She starts opening up, and there's a lot more to her than that label of dyslexia. Because sometimes finding out what's wrong, it doesn't mean that defines you. It just means, oh, okay, now how am I going to handle that, and how am I going to move forward? For instance, I don't want to get into it until I can get off on little stories, as you'll realize when you come to school in the fall, and I have to stop myself. So I'm stopping myself. Okay, next book, The War That Saved My Life. So this again was a green for me. I loved this book. It's a little sad and has some really no moments, no, how could her mother do that to her? So this girl, if you look at her feet here, she was born with a club foot, which means it could have been cured when she was an infant. But her mother didn't do that. Her mother was just annoyed that she wasn't born perfectly, so she just left her in their apartment and never let her go out of the house. So it could have been fixed, but she can only walk on one foot. And her mother didn't get her crutches or a wheelchair or anything. So her mother just told her she was a worthless cripple, and she just had to sit there. And sometimes when her mother went out, she would put her under the sink in the cabinet, which kind of reminded me of Harry Potter. But this is a little bit worse because it's her actual mother. But it's set in a time when the children of London had to evacuate to the English countryside. So they had to leave London because they were told that London was going to be bombed in the war, and they wanted to protect the children. So all of the children got on trains and went out to the country, so far away from the city. And Ada and her brother got to live with this lady, and she had never been outside of her apartment. She is beside herself, and she can't walk. But obviously, it's a happy ending. And she learns a lot living in the country. And it's really hard for her to trust anyone because she had been treated so terribly her entire life. And then the planes come, and it's interesting for adults who are listening to this. Dunkirk is mentioned in this book. And this is one of the towns where Ada is that helped the Dunkirk survivors. So that's a little adult connection. But that was an awesome book. The next one is The Blossoming Universe of Violet Diamond, another green for me. Violet Diamond is biracial. Her father was African American. Her mother is white, and her sister has a different father, so her sister is white. So Violet feels very different, and her hair is different, her skin is different, and she doesn't feel like she's white. She doesn't feel like she's African American. She doesn't even know how she fits in. So she starts to Google. She knows that her father died, but she never met any of her father's family, and she wants to know why they never wanted to meet her. So she reaches out, and she finds out that her father's mother, her grandmother, is a famous artist, and she has a art exhibit in Seattle. So she goes there and she meets her, and she is called her Bibi. It's Swahili, which is African for grandmother. And she goes to visit Bibi, and Bibi lives in a completely Black or African American neighborhood of Los Angeles, and she's never been around that many people that looked like her. So she learns a lot about her culture and her family, and including food and song and just the connection and love of another group of people that look like her. So it's a very happy story, and it has a happy ending. Okay, next, The Turtle of Oman. I gave this a yellow. It's about an 8-year-old boy, Aref, who loves his life, but his parents are students, and they want to go to America to finish their doctorates and become doctors. Excuse me. And it's just for 3 years. They know it's for 3 years. His cousins are going to be living in his house, so his house will be there when he gets back, but he just can't even imagine leaving everything. And City is his grandfather, and he decides to take Aref out while his mother is packing. And they kind of go through everything that Aref loves about Oman. And this is a map. It shows you where it is. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. And they basically it's just a story about how City and Aref go camping and talk about all of their memories and how they're still going to be there. And it was interesting, but it wasn't something that I was really that interested in, to tell you the truth. It was just a story about him missing his home and all the things he would miss, and that his grandfather keeps reassuring him that it's just 3 years. And that's pretty much it. We talk a lot in our classroom about the story roller coaster. You set the scene, you build suspense, the main event, and then resolving the problem, and then wrapping it up. And it didn't feel like this had a roller coaster. It felt very flat. So you may enjoy it. I was not a huge fan. Also, Lowriders in Space. Okay, this is a graphic novel. I gave this a red. I like graphic novels. The books about Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, the graphic novels from last year's Children's Book Award list were excellent, and I highly recommended them. This I did not. These characters, which are very cartoony, it's more of a cartoon. I mean, I love graphic novels, don't get me wrong. I felt like this was more of a cartoon. And it's called Lowriders in Space. They want to build their own garage. They're like mechanics. So they enter this car competition, a lowrider competition. It's a kind of a car, and it explains it. There are a lot of Spanish words, and then they tell you what they mean. So that's interesting. However, to decorate their car, they end up going into space, and the stars decorate their car, and it just is. I thought it would, because it was about space, it would be a little more scientifically accurate, and it's actually inaccurate. And I think that was annoying me because I thought, if you're going to do this, if you're going to have a graphic novel and make it a little bit silly, at least be accurate in the science of space. So this is a series, but it's enjoyable, but I would have hoped they had the opportunity to make it a little more interesting, to give facts, like the Magic Treehouse. That's an adventure, but they also teach you things, and they are accurate. So you might like this. It's cute, but it's more of a cartoon. Considering that it said grade 4, I didn't consider this grade 4. I didn't think that the reading of it, the words were difficult, or the actual content. Okay, now we're moving on because this is grade 5, but I thought I would introduce these to you because you may enjoy them. This is a creepy book, The Nest, and it means a hornet's nest, and it's really freaky, and you don't know till the end unless it's real or not. So Steve is this boy, and his family, his parents had a baby, and it's very sick, and he has to go to the hospital all the time, and they're not sure, and he has to have surgery, like heart surgery. And when Steve has a lot of anxiety, he's even gone to a therapist, he takes medicine, so he knows that he worries a lot. And he also knows that his parents are having a lot of difficulty coming to terms with this, and they're always upset, and they don't have a lot of time for him. So he has a dream that a wasp queen talks to him in the dream and says that she can fix the baby, and it freaks him out. But she keeps coming to his dream, and she actually brings him into the nest, and you're like, is it really happening? Is it not happening? So he's very excited. Like, you can fix the baby? That would be awesome. But then takes a turn, and it's creepy. And I don't want to tell you too much because you don't know until the last chapter. I was like, no way. So it's suspenseful. It's a little creepy, but it's suspenseful, and I think you'll love it. So this is another one, the Jumbies. This is another green for me. And it is grade 5. But it is so cool. It's fiction. It's fantasy. Because this little girl, they live by the forbidden forest. She and her father live by the forbidden forest. Her mother died. And it's just the two of them. And she has this special necklace that her mother gave her. And 2 mean boys take the necklace and throw it and put it around in a goodie. And she runs into the forest and she finds it. But she sees these yellow eyes. And she's like, what was that? And Jumbies are these kind of shapeshifters. They can be people, or they can be a tree, or they can be an animal. So, her father tells her they're not real. It's just a story that, grown-ups have made up to scare children to stay out of the forest. But obviously we know it's got to be true. So this is a story about her, Corinne. She doesn't have any friends, and then obviously throughout the story she makes some friends. But it's kind of a twist about the Jumbie and who the Jumbie actually is, and what the Jumbie wants from Corinne. So it's exciting, and I read it in one day because I couldn't put it down. So that was another good one. Ooh, this was a good one. The Copernicus Legacy. This is a series, and this is the first book, The Forbidden Stone. So there are these 2 boys, Wade and Daryl. They're stepbrothers. Wade's father is a scientist, an astronomer, and Daryl's mother works in artifacts and old books. And so one day they mistakenly look at an email that is coded from his Uncle Henry. And then his father's like, why did you look at this email? And his father's scared about the email. And Uncle Henry suddenly dies suspiciously. So they set off to Germany to go to the funeral. And obviously they figure out the coded message and why he died. And they go on a race to find the Forbidden Stone. And it's very dangerous because there are other people looking for the Forbidden Stone that want to use it for evil. So there are 12 relics. And now, of course, in this book, they found the first one. And if they find all 12, they'll unlock the Copernicus Legacy. And the Order are the bad people. So at first, it's just fun, and they're figuring out the codes. And then they realize that the Order really wants these 12 relics. So they'll do anything to get them. So it's a little scary, but it's also so interesting and makes you really think. So I really enjoyed it, and I think you will too. And I haven't bought the other books in this series, but I will for our classroom or for me. And the last book I read, which is also green and also 5th grade, The Misadventures of the Family Fletcher. Now, these are the 4 boys, Sam, Jax, Eli, and Frog. And Frog's real name is Jeremiah because Jeremiah was a bullfrog. So his name is Jeremiah, so they give him the nickname Frog. And this kind of tells you about them. Sam likes soccer, but also Annie. That's interesting. Jax likes hockey and soccer and justice. Eli is really interested in doing well in school. And Frog, it's kind of a mishmash of everything. That Frog is in kindergarten, and he just loves life. So Sam, Jax, Eli, and Frog were all adopted by their 2 dads. So, obviously, this is also a series. And the 4 boys are very different, and they have different adventures and learn about themselves at the same time. And they have a neighbor who is very unhappy, and they have to figure out how to live with him and get to know him, and that's really hard. So it's a great story. I really enjoyed learning it. You learn a lot about the 4 boys and how they interact with each other and their dads throughout the story. And it's a lot of fun. And it's not a hard read. I don't know why they put it in grade 5, because I think it's very accessible to you 4th grade students. So I recommend all of these books, even if I didn't really enjoy them, like Lowriders from Space, not a big fan. You may love it. The Turtle of Oman, you may like that too. So even though if they weren't books that I really highly recommend, I recommend that you read any book, because sometimes what one person doesn't enjoy, another person does. So, in any case, please read at least 2 of them from this list. You can have someone read it to you. You can do audible.com or another app that can read books to you. Or read it yourself. I'm looking forward to seeing you all on the first day of school. I can't believe it's already getting into August. So I'll be going into school on Monday, the 7th, to get the classroom all set up and put your names on the desks and everything. It's very exciting. It's always exciting, but a little nervous to start the school year. So if you like to email me, please do. I love getting emails. But otherwise, enjoy the rest of August, and I will see you after Labor Day. Bye.